effects of climate change. All right, so let's begin with the latest right now. I understand there's an independent medical legal unit presser that's currently happening. They will be speaking about the state of affairs in the country. If we could, let's just cross over and listen in to the deliberations that are ongoing on that particular end.
Vivian Mwende, the lead treaty bodies and criminal justice reforms at Independent Medical Legal Unit, IMLU. We shall continue on the progress in the following areas as we commemorate this first year of Kenya Kwanza government. 1. The appointment of a senior pathologist is indeed a positive development, indicating a commitment to improving the investigation of reportable deaths. However, the full implementation of the Coroner's General Office is imperative. The completion of the human resources instruments in readiness for appointment of the Coroner's General is still imperative. The government's commitment to resolving all judgments and orders against it within a 60-day time frame is certainly commendable, such as the appointment of Court of Appeal judges and facilitating the return of Miguna. The disbandment of the Special Service Unit SSU marked a significant step in the right direction. The establishment of a task force on police and prison reforms under the capable leadership of retired Chief Justice David Maraga Emeritus represented a promising stride towards creating a dignified work environment for our law enforcement officers. Also, in a parallel move aimed at achieving financial independence for the National Police Service, the appointment of a Principal Administrative Secretary, PAS, as the accounting officer was a pivotal step in the right direction. This appointment aimed to ensure that the police could operate autonomously, free from undue influence from the President's office.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Peter Kiama, the Director of the Independent Medical Legal Unit. You're most welcome. Having listed some of the progress seen so far with regard to implementation of the Ruto government manifesto, we now go to the next part, which is the part that really concerns us. And this is the part that is titled Dismal Performance. The data from our daily monitoring in the last 12 months demonstrate that the government has performed dismally with regard to democratic policing and protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms. Indeed, the freedom of assembly, association, expression, and media freedom has faced unprecedented threats. In the past year, we have witnessed a wave of punitive policing during protests, extrajudicial executions, deaths in custody, deliberate torture of children, interference with investigative authorities, and constitutional interference with the National Police Service and other critical human rights violations. As you are aware, the current government promised to end police abuse, especially against urban youth, through enhancing police oversight and creating an ombudsman to monitor human rights violations. We are sad to report that there has been no change in this direction. To achieve this particular promise, the current government committed to ending extrajudicial executions, enforced disappearances, and enhancing police oversight through bodies like IPOA and the National Police Service Commission. Unfortunately, our data reveals a troubling trend from October 2022 to August 31st, 2023. In this period, we documented unprecedented 482 cases of torture and other violations, including extrajudicial executions, enforced disappearances. And these cases are more than double the cases documented in a similar period in between October 2021 and September 2022. As I mentioned, this marks a staggering increase of 250 cases compared to 232 cases reported in a similar period between 2021 and 2022. Out of these 482 cases, 351 were torture, inhumane, degrading treatment or punishment, and 128 cases were extrajudicial executions, and 3 were enforced disappearances. Shockingly, the majority of victims, all survivors, were young male adults between the age of 18 and 35 years, accounting for 314 cases out of 482. While those aged between 36 and 65 years were 121, and those under 18 were 44. Majority of these cases, at 415, were male and 67 were female. This increase in cases of torture and other violations from 232 in the previous period to 482 between October last year and now indicate a failure to curb police abuse of power, including excessive, unnecessary, illegal, and disproportionate use of force and firearms. This alarming rise not only shows a lack of progress, but also suggests the situation has worsened. Furthermore, the fact that majority of victims and survivors are young adults aged between 18 and 35 years, accounting for 65%, is particularly troubling, because the promise by this government was to take care of the youth of this country. President Ruto's promise was aimed at protecting urban youth from police abuse, yet they continue to be disproportionately affected by these violations. The data we have implies that the president's efforts to address police abuse and protect urban youth has fallen short, as evidenced by the increase in these cases and the demographic profile of the victims. This situation calls for a critical evaluation of the strategies and measures put in place to fulfill the promises made regarding police reform and the protection of youth. I'll hand over to my colleague to continue.
My name is Isabella Obara. I work with IMLU as the technical lead for litigation and legal advice. In the same vein, for dismal performance, we'll speak about accountability, independence, and oversight. IPOA's financial structuring and resources have not been prioritized during the Kenya Kwanza administration, undermining its effectiveness in accountability and justice for victims. The promised ombudsman to monitor human rights violation has not been appointed, and cases of abuse have escalated, particularly during public order management. Expressions and statements that commend law enforcement violations and issuance of shoot-to-kill orders already worsen a critical situation. The contradictory rhetoric surrounding police reforms amplifies violations and confuses the nation's progress on accountability. Chances of accountability have dimmed as a result of police refusal to record complaints from victims of police abuse and failure to report all injuries and deaths to IPOA as required by the law ensures that we do not investigate as we should. The denial of occurrence book numbers, P3 forms, and the lack of investigation into police misconduct contribute to a lack of accountability and impunity. Establishing a special tribunal for gross human rights violations and enforced disappearance, as promised by the KK government, based on their manifesto, These are our comments. The disbandment of the Special Service Unit marked a significant step in the right direction. However, it is disheartening to take note that cases against its members have not been advanced as expected, particularly in the wake of the resurgence of similar units during protests, who we call Men in Black. This raises serious concerns about accountability and the efficiency, or rather the efficacy, of the measures taken. Furthermore, the decision to transfer the responsibility for addressing enforced disappearances back to the Independent Policing Oversight Authority is a disappointing move. While IPOA plays a pivotal role in police oversight, its mandate does not extend to covering all perpetrators, including those from military, Kenya Forest Service, and Kenya Wildlife Service, especially where the latter are not operating under the police command. This limitation in its jurisdiction undermines its ability to comprehensively address enforced disappearances and other gross human rights violations perpetrated by various agencies.